Hello and welcome back to the Data Privacy Lawyer. My name is Funmi Owolabi. Today's review, we're going to be looking at cookies. We're going to be taking a look at this organization. We have the banner, and you can see here that each color for the buttons is red, so that's good. And it's got white wording. And that's really important from a privacy perspective because there's a term in the data protection space known as dark patterns. And dark patterns are basically tactics used by organizations to influence the behaviors of consumers. And it's not considered a very good thing. So it's really important for businesses to stay away from introducing dark patterns into their privacy practices. So I'm just going to reject all. Let's look at the cookie notice itself. So terminology really matters. We can see here they've addressed theirs as a notice. I think this is really important, particularly going forward in the level of sophistication that businesses have when it comes to personal data. A notice is basically putting you on notice, essentially. So it's like, this is what I do as a business. I do these things. I use your data to send you emails. They're not asking for your permission. They're not laying out the details of this is how we send those emails. We use system A, we use system B. They're putting you on notice, which is essentially the documents that you see on a website. You see a privacy notice. The privacy notice tells you what a business is doing. It doesn't detail how it conducts those activities. It just tells you what it's doing. Same with cookies. This notice doesn't have a date in which this cookie notice was last updated. Now, the value in that is if it has in fact changed the types of cookies and the purpose, let's say from 2025, for example, if the usage of this particular cookie, the purpose has changed, that would be something that would need to be updated for the notice. And having the date you last updated your cookie notice is valuable because it gives you the opportunity to re-review that everything you claim you're doing is actually being done in practice. Now, for most businesses, how they conduct their products and services changes year in, year out. Sometimes they upgrade the service. Sometimes they remove a particular vendor. Sometimes they delete certain types of data associated with the product and its offering. All those changes need to be captured traditionally in these notices. Now, traditionally, the cookie notice affects the website, but sometimes people have technology products that also collect cookies. If that's in scope, it should be detailed at the top. Now we can see the scope for this particular notice by using AON's website. So I'm a consumer of this website because I'm on the website right now. So this cookie notice directly affects me because this is the scope they've outlined. By using AON's website, you agree that we can place cookies on your device as described in our privacy statement. So they've got a statement and a cookie notice. You might be asking, why is it that some businesses choose to make a distinction? I think there's a couple of reasons. From a user perspective, you've also got to think about user experience when it comes to privacy. And there are many data protection laws that have alluded to the fact that it's really important for businesses to address the audience with their tone. The reason why I presume a lot of companies separate out the privacy statement and the cookie notice is because of the types of identifiers associated with each notice. I've talked in the past about buckets of data subjects. The data subjects in scope for this cookie notice are users of AON's website, which includes me. The privacy statement may go into different details of processing associated with other data subjects. It could go into processing associated with suppliers and vendors. So you've got to think about it like this. If a user is going to be accessing the site, if there is too much information related to each bucket of data subject, it could be cumbersome for a user to read through all of that material. And I've done plenty of these reviews in the past. You've seen there are different lengths associated with the privacy notices that are issued by businesses because they're taking different factors into consideration. Now, there's no which way in order for you to conduct your notice or statement. Some companies have a privacy statement that also addresses cookies. They don't separate it. I think the value in separating it is it makes the user experience better, and it also helps pinpoint and identify scope a bit more clearly so that it's not cumbersome for users to be able to scroll down a million pages associated with their privacy practices that are displayed in these statements. The table below is a list of the main cookies set by AON's website. The question I would have is this still consistent with AON's website in 2026? And we can't know that for a fact because there's no date in which this notice was last updated. Is this still indicative of how cookies are addressed in 2026? Now, The other thing I noticed is I wish I had clicked it before, but it was about exercising my preferences when it comes to the cookies. So I had just selected delete all, but I think something that would have been valuable would have been to look at the preference center as well, in addition and in conjunction with the cookies that AON uses, which are strictly necessary cookies, performance, functionality, and targeting. And I've talked a lot about why it's important to ensure that your preference center aligns with what you've put on the notice, because again, we're going back to the user experience. The types of individuals that are using AON's websites may not be sophisticated enough to understand privacy nuances. The responsibility of fulfilling that transparency requirement under the data protection law lies on this organization. So if you are saying these are the cookies we use and you're not using this type of terminology in the banner, then it could be really confusing for your users, and it's definitely something that a regulator would be interested in. Okay, so the interesting thing, I'll show you what just happened. If I had originally clicked the banner at the bottom, it also would have led me to this same page. What's interesting is on this particular page, this business has used "do not sell or share my personal information" as the button to exercise your cookie preferences, strictly necessary cookies, sale and analytics. Now, I'm just going to scroll up because I want to demonstrate something. Let's close it. So according to this website, they use strictly necessary performance, functionality, and targeting. If we go to this button here, that's what we should see. Let's go down. Strictly necessary, performance, functional. But what's interesting is we don't have the last one, the targeting one. Now, I don't know if that's captured in analytic cookies. Do you see how this banner appears to conflict in some ways to the statement and notice we read above? Because if we click this, right, your privacy, thank you very much. This is what they do on the website, do not sell or share. Strictly necessary cookies is one button. We've got strictly, performance, and functional, but we don't have the targeted. Okay, let's keep going. So we've got the targeting in a different section. I'm not entirely sure the reason for distinguishing them. I also think it would be valuable if this is the layout that's going to be used for this organization to address the sale of personal data above. Let's see if it is. So the insight that we have related to targeting cookies doesn't seem to align word for word with the description in the preference center, like here. And the other call out that I wanted to make is that it's not just the California Consumer Privacy Act that dictates sale of personal data. Since this time, there have been additional US state privacy laws that have also addressed the sale of personal data in their US privacy legislation, the state legislation on the state basis. We look at privacy on a federal level, state level, and industry level. So I think there's a number of different recommendations I would personally make, but it's really interesting to see how businesses are rolling out their cookie compliance as it pertains to the whole privacy program, because I think for clarity purposes, and I talked about this at the beginning with the separation of the privacy statement with the cookie notice, adding a date in which your cookie notice is updated is going to assist a business in being able to make the pertinent changes required when it comes to ensuring they're compliant when it comes to cookies. I am going to opine and say that maybe that this notice has not been updated in a while because the changes in the law from a US perspective, and we're clear that cookies are being collected in the United States because they reference California, there are certain changes and tweaks that need to be made so that the cookie consent management process flow aligns with what's required under the data protection laws. Now, there's many details that are missing whenever I review these statements and notices, and that's insight information that is generally provided to the Privacy Council. I definitely always have my own intake form, and that's how I'm able to assist my clients in making sure that the representations they're making on their website, one, adhere to the obligations they have under the respective data protection laws, and two, follow a process that is going to make it easy for the users to understand what is happening with their data. I think the use of this button, do not sell or share my personal information, doesn't necessarily align with what is going to be happening related to cookies. That button generally is associated with allowing you to opt out of the sale or sharing of your personal information and isn't necessarily in relation to the usage of cookies. Generally, they're separate buttons. But I think that it's really important for businesses to understand what's at stake when they're putting different content on their websites and how to make sure they're able to maintain their own compliance in the geographies where they operate. I think the other clue that we can see here is it seems like there's reference to the United Kingdom. Now, I don't know if that's a geography where this organization operates, but we can see here that they've got locations and offices. So maybe this could also allude to the geographies in which they process personal data to include usage of the website. Now, I'm located in the United States, so the influence of this cookie notice on me is going to be from a US perspective. But the discussion of the UK here indicates that there may be some Eurocentric privacy considerations that need to be taken into place with this cookie notice. And it would be valuable to know when this was last updated, because the opinions that I have about the notice could be influenced if there was a date. So I really hope you enjoyed this review. If you have comments about what I've stated, leave a comment below and I'll see you in another review.